Okay, so hello. I should probably start with the first slide. Okay, welcome to this CAD and 3D printing milestones course. My name is Andrew Pham. I'm a junior in mechanical engineering. I'm from San Jose, California, and I've been CADing for about 6 or 7 years now. So I've been doing this for a little while. I saw you raise your hand, so you're probably from the Bay Area. But yeah, outside of this, I'm a big 3D printing enthusiast, so you may have seen in the video that I posted, I do a lot of speed printing in high temperature materials, so it's a lot of fun, and CAD has a lot of relevancy in that kind of field right now. And a fun fact about me is I was a barista, but I don't like coffee, so I just got to make coffee, but I didn't really like drinking it. We do have 3 lovely TAs in this class. Unfortunately, 2 of them are gone today, so I'm just going to run through their slides and then you can introduce yourself. David Kim is one of our TAs. He's not here today, but he's pretty cool. He's been CADing for around 3 years. Cool. But yeah, and then we have one more TA. His name is David Foss. He's also not here. So yeah, there's 2 Davids that aren't here. But he's also pretty cool. I'm gonna get maybe lunch with him tomorrow. Yeah, more about him is on this slide. I'm sure they'll probably introduce themselves later next week and during next class. But yes, we are all here for you. So if you have any questions, please raise your hand, ask, or if you're out of class, that's what the Discord is for. If you're asking, if you have a question, please don't email me because I'm not gonna read them. So if you just message me or message the Discord, somebody's gonna usually be able to help you. And oftentimes I find that other students having, similar issues might be piggybacking on someone if they're too scared to ask. So if you want to ask the question, there's a chance that someone else wants to know the answer as well. So yeah, I'm trying to build a community where we can all help, refine our design skills. So hopefully you can use that to your advantage. I'll go over more of the structure on that later. But yeah. This is just kind of some of the stuff I've done in the past. I did a lot of FRC in high school, if anyone's familiar with that. So I did a lot of robotics, designed a bunch of fun stuff. And, some takeaways from this class can translate into this stuff. I think as you start to CAD more and more, you'll come to realize that most of this stuff is pretty achievable with some pretty simple functions. Lots of this stuff is just extrudes and revolves, and we're going to be going over that today. So yeah, a lot of this is possible. It just takes a little bit of thinking and then you'll get there. Yeah, don't be intimidated by this. This is a beginner level course, so don't worry. But yeah, we're just gonna start by downloading Fusion because sometimes it takes a while. Someone with a Mac was DMing me, but I don't know. Okay, hello. You can send me, or did you get the installer?
I'm on this stage right now. I have the app.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
I just have the app there.
That's fine. I'll just kind of run through that.
Okay.
So if you have a Windows machine, you can get a head start. Unfortunately, I didn't get the most up-to-date Mac installer, but I'll do that next time. So if you go into the course Discord, which I hope everyone's in, if you go under resources, there's this link for installers. It's like a Google Drive link to an exe file. So if you have a Windows machine, just download that and run it, and it'll start downloading Fusion. But if not, then we'll just make an account and then we'll download the installer. So yeah. Okay. Typically I start rambling about this course, but to make sure everyone's downloading stuff, I'm gonna skip to the installer or to the account creation part. Okay, so basically, where did my presentation mode go? Oh gosh. So basically, if you have a Mac and you haven't installed Fusion yet, wait, who has a Mac and who hasn't installed Fusion yet? Okay, cool. So, um, you just want to first register and make an Autodesk account. So, there's this Autodesk registration link here. When you go here, I think I'm already logged in, but it'll ask you for like your email to create an account. Please use your Purdue email so they know you're a Purdue student. If you don't, then they may not give you your education license, so you should do that.
If you had one through your old high school.
If you had one through your old high school, I would make a new one. Unless you just want to use your old one, if it's still active, that's fine. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you could totally do that. Just keep in mind that I think all of the stuff you make will be like on that old account. So if you make a new Purdue account, you probably want to like download everything off the old account before it deactivates. But that's perfectly fine. Yeah, use your Purdue account, create like your login, password, stuff like that. And this is where it sometimes gets complicated. For like a vast majority of you, it'll be very straightforward, and you'll have no problems. But with some other people, it's kind of random. They'll ask you for like more identification. So I think you got it. Like they're asking like your name and like Purdue's address and stuff like that. So some of this information is here under resources if you run into that issue. Yeah, I think it's typically under this link too if you ever have any issues. So yeah, is anyone kind of confused about what I'm just saying? Okay, so I'll let everyone do that. I guess you guys can all make accounts if you're on a Windows machine as well. And then I'll kind of talk more about the course. So we can do some multitasking here. But yeah, while you do that, I'll go over the course intro.
It's asking for a phone number. Do I just put my own?
I think Purdue has a phone number.
It's under here.
Yeah, if you look up like Purdue like phone number or something, I think it's like
Okay.
It's like really weird. They want to know Purdue's address for some reason. But yeah. Anyways, I guess some of you might be asking why we're using Fusion 360 in this course. For one, it's free for all Purdue students, so it's very convenient. I think it's pretty intuitive for people who are just starting to learn CAD. The icons are, shaped very nicely. And then one of the features I'll show you later is that when you hover over a lot of the tools, it'll kind of tell you what it does. So if you're ever confused on what something does, you can kind of hover over it and it'll tell you. So that's nice. That makes it pretty user friendly. And it's cloud based. So all of your files will be stored on like Autodesk like cloud servers. So if you ever log into another computer, you'll kind of have access to all your stuff, which is pretty cool. It's also nice for collaboration if you're working on like group projects in your courses. A lot of people will like create like a shared drive that you can all compile your parts into and kind of work together. So it's pretty nice. And it's also available on Mac and Windows. A lot of CAD programs are Windows only. So this kind of lowers the barrier of entry, makes sure more people can access this software. So that's kind of why we use it. It's also pretty great for integrating with the other classes that we teach on Milestones. We do have an FEA and GD&T course. Well, those are two separate classes, but those all use Fusion as well. So if you take this class and you really like it and you want to kind of develop more niche CAD skills, you can take those courses as well. Yeah, I guess that's kind of talking a little bit about Milestones. It's a series of skills-based workshops that you have entered yourself into. This is obviously not the only one because I've talked about a couple of them, but it supplements your coursework. Many of you have asked me if this goes towards your GPA. It does not. So this is completely supplemental, but if you do complete this course, you do get a certificate from Purdue. So it's not just like me, some random Purdue student giving you something, but it's like an official, like Purdue recognized, you know, uh, certificate. I can't talk. But yeah, the certificate process typically takes a while to process. So once you finish this course, like I'll probably send an email, be like, hey, you passed, good job. And then you'll wait like 3 months for the certificate to come through. Unfortunately, it's kind of out of my hands when I send it out. I can like poke them, but sometimes they take a while. So just keep that in mind because people will be like, where's my cert? And then like it's coming. So yeah, just keep that in mind. It will take a while. Unfortunately, like 2 years ago, it took almost a year, but I think that's better now. So yeah, hopefully it'll be a lot faster. It's usually like 3-ish months. So yeah.
You know, at the end, they also practice.
Yes, so all of those classes get certs. I think there's one milestones that doesn't get a cert, but they're working towards it like right now. So it's like a professional development course. I forget the name exactly, but yeah. I think they should have a cert by the end of the semester. Yeah. I think reverse engineering also has a cert if you're interested. But yeah, most of these come with certs. But yeah, milestones is pretty cool. If you were curious, I'm kind of working with milestones. Oh, okay. Sorry, I forgot. Yeah, this class specifically is just kind of here to help you understand the importance of CAD and build your CAD skills from the beginning. You know, I want you to leave with the tools to create anything that you want to make on the computer and also render them for like more professional uses. We're also going to be dabbling in 3D printing if that's of interest to you. It's becoming pretty popular and I think it's a lot of fun. But yeah, basically when you leave this class, you should be able to design like most things that you want. At least you'll have all the tools to do it. It just takes a little bit of thinking on how you want to utilize the tools to create the model that is in your brain. Yeah, that's the fun part. Anyways, so you know about milestones, a little bit about me and my association with milestones. I actually am part of a club called ASME, which is the American Society of Mechanical Engineers. And we kind of work in collaboration with milestones to give this course to you. So they created the course, they taught it for a while, and then they handed it off to us. And then we can continue to provide this course to you while they develop new courses for more students to take in the future. But ASME, we're a pretty big organization here at Purdue. We do a lot of cool stuff to prepare members for industry or wherever they want to go. We have like technical experience. I guess this is technically an experience for me because I'm learning like public speaking and stuff. But then we also do professional development stuff if you want to like, strengthen your resume and stuff like that. We do a lot. We have a bunch of different design teams. This slide is slightly outdated, but small projects is one of the groups that I worked with for a while. Every semester you get like a couple of rules to build something. You get in a team and then you design something cool. The semester I did it, we did battle bots. A couple semesters ago, we made drones. I forget exactly what we're doing this semester, but it's usually pretty cool. But yeah, we have a bunch of different sub-teams for a wide variety of interests if you're interested. And also, you don't have to be an ME to join this organization. So if you're interested and you want to join, it's totally fine if you're not an ME. We don't discriminate at all. But yeah, here's some more if you're interested. Again, we do professional development, like I mentioned earlier. So we do have like resume workshops, which might be nice for people who might be going to industrial roundtable tomorrow or something like that. So we offer that as well. Yeah, if you're interested in joining, there's a Slack link. I forget if this works or not, so if it doesn't, just let me know. I also have these slides posted, so if I breeze through it and you don't get a photo and you want to join later, you can reference it later. But yeah, that's a little bit about ASME. A little bit more about this class. As many of you probably know, it's a 5-week lecture, once a week for 5 weeks, meeting on Mondays today for the next 5 weeks. It'll all be in this classroom, Burke 1001. But yeah, we have a couple of modules that I'm going to go over in a bit. Yeah, that's kind of it about the course. A little bit more of a specific breakdown on points and stuff like that, it's all here. If you're interested, I can probably send you the full rubric as well. But I give you like all the rubrics week by week. So if you're interested on what I'm grading on, it's all there for you. So you know, feel free to read it and get full points. A lot of this class is, participation based, like, getting your reps in and kind of trying all the tools. So I'm not a super harsh grader. I'm sure if the TAs grade too, they won't like, kill you guys. Again, this is a supplemental class, so I don't want you to stress about this too much. So yeah, these are kind of all the general point values for all the assignments and stuff you're going to be doing. It may look intimidating right now, but we're going to be doing a lot of these in class, so don't worry too much. Basically, to pass the class and get a certificate, you need at least a 70%. And as you can see from these point values, a lot of these are going to be done in class. So if you just show up to class and you copy what I do, you're probably going to get like at least 50%, 60%. And then if you do, the little extra stuff that's assigned, then, it's pretty good. A lot of people pass this class with over 100% because there are some extra credit opportunities in here. So yeah, it's pretty chill. But I just hope that you get a lot out of this class as much as I do. I like teaching this class. So yeah. Oh, yes, that's a typo. This class was on Tuesdays. All assignments are due like the Monday right before class. So it would be like 5:29 p.m. if that makes sense. Okay, I'll fix that later. Sorry about that. I think I wrote Tuesday on the welcome email too, so I should fix that. Anyways, basically, when you finish this class, you're going to be able to render your final projects. The final project is basically a like free-for-all kind of thing. The like requirements for points are pretty loose, but it's just kind of there as an opportunity to explore like what you've learned through this class, to see what you can make. And then after that, we can 3D print them. So yeah. Uh, Basically, the main requirements is that it can't be like a previous assignment that we did in class. That's kind of self-explanatory. And then it must contain at least like 5 design features. You're going to kind of learn what they are as we go through class. But anyone who's does know CAD can kind of see pretty early on, like that's a pretty relaxed final for this class. So like some people bang this stuff in like out in like half an hour. So if you're like really pressed for time, that's doable. But yeah, some people like to spend a really great amount of time to create really awesome finals, which I really appreciate. Again, I think this class is like whatever you put into this class, like you'll get out a lot more. So if you want to do the bare minimum and get the cert, that's totally cool with me. I can't stop you from doing that. But if you really want to take the time to explore and learn, I highly encourage that, right? So a lot of people come into this class not knowing how to design anything, and then they'll like make something like this at the end. And sometimes it just blows me away because some of these things are like I wouldn't even think about like designing until I see it in front of me. I'm like, wow, that's like pretty awesome. So if you do have some time on your hands and you want to explore and design stuff, it's definitely possible, and I definitely encourage it. But yeah, hopefully if you make something cool, I'll update these slides and maybe put your final on here for the next people to look at. Anyways, okay, by show of hands, who has not finished creating their Autodesk account? Because sometimes it's annoying. Yeah.
It asks you for like to create a hub, like a hub name. What do you use for
Okay, the hub name, we'll get to that in a bit, but like it's just kind of naming your personal workspace. So you can kind of name it whatever you want. Maybe don't name it something like really like inappropriate, but like you can name it whatever you want. It's basically like your Google Drive, but for Autodesk. Yeah. Does anyone else have any questions? I saw your hand was raised. Okay. So if it says your license is expired, I think you can go down to this link here, and it might ask you for some like extra information. Okay, but yeah, I'll walk around the room a little bit because I know sometimes it's and stuff and they kind of weird. Oh yeah, sometimes that happens. If your thing says trial, it's probably fine for this class. If you want to check, I think on the website, make sure you're not on the trial by checking your profile. I think if you click like the bottom link, it'll like show whether you have it or not. And if you don't, then like you can add that extra information. Select, and then here it'll ask you. So this is like extra step. It should remove the trial. For me, one time I was like, I confirmed it, and when the trial was still there, I waited for the 30 seconds, and then honestly, I have another time I uninstalled and reinstalled it, or like logged in and I logged out. Sometimes it works, but as long as you're confirmed on the Autodesk website. So once I yeah, it should tell you that you have like educational license after. Yeah, and it says like when it expires. Okay. I don't have an extra. Yeah. Do you have one at home?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, yeah.
I use Fusion. I hate it.
Yeah. I mean, actually, you can use my mouse. I use my touch screen. Just please give it back. Um, yes. Yeah, I'm sending. Okay. Does anyone have any issues creating an account? Eric? It'll probably ask you. Yeah, so anyone who has a trial on their computer right now, I would go to this link and like run through, like click on Fusion and stuff. Let me see if I can do it on my computer. I think I'm confirmed already. But it'll open to like this website. Then you, okay, stop lagging. I need to get a new laptop. Okay, if you select Fusion, you want to be greeted after this loading screen. Oh, you should select this. Am I not verified? That'd be quite tragic. Oh, okay. So I think I'm not good. Okay, great. So I can do it with you. So I hope you were following along, but you could just click on Fusion and run through this. You kind of enter your information. I think mine might be fine. Okay, so mine's confirmed, but if you don't, it'll ask you for like additional info. A lot of the info is here. It'll ask you for like Purdue's address and their website, and then I think you got their phone number. I think you can just Google it and it'll say. But yeah, is anyone dealing with the trial thing? Feel free to raise your hand, just so I know. Okay. Yeah, it'll probably ask you for that. So. Does anyone have any like general questions about this course? I know I've been kind of like spamming in with a bunch of information. So this is going pretty smoothly. The class size that I typically have for this course is 80 students. So um, there should be 40 people here. So this might go a little bit faster. You might get out a little earlier today. But yeah, typically when there's 80 people trying to make an education license, Autodesk kind of throws a fit. Yeah. Okay. Raise your hand if you haven't like finished installing Fusion yet. Okay. We can wait up a little bit.
Do I sign in afterwards? Do I sign in?
Yeah. Once you launch Fusion, you'll sign in. I installed Fusion. I should probably download it too.
I submit first, right? I submit the form first.
Yes. You want to make sure you have an account on like the browser before you sign in to Fusion itself. Okay. So while my Fusion is downloading, I forgot I uninstall it so I can do it with all of you. I'm going to ramble a little bit more about what CAD in this course is. Yeah, this is kind of an intro, so if anyone has CAD experience, usually going to be pretty chill. If you're wondering what CAD is, CAD stands for Computer Aided Design. Basically, a long time ago, people used to just draw everything on paper, and there were like rooms full of people designing stuff. But then some smart dude at MIT used a computer to create models. I think they first started out as 2D, but as technology has gotten better and better, we've moved to 3D typically, and now stuff is like powerful enough that you can CAD on a laptop. So before you can see this computer is like massive, it's probably like as big as this room, but now you can CAD on your little computers. Some people CAD on their phones and iPads, which is kind of insane. Yeah, it's pretty cool. CAD is a very powerful tool. It allows you to design individual components along with assemblies, which we're going to be going over later. So it allows you to kind of design things in a virtual space before you spend a lot of money making something in real life, right? You can test things. It's a lot of fun. Aside from just the design aspect, you can do a lot of other things with these CAD programs. They typically have like some simulation software, so you can simulate like stress and stuff like that. Which, if you're interested, you would take FEA for finite element analysis. You can do also computer aided manufacturing, so you can take your design in the CAD program and convert it into a bunch of movement commands for a CNC machine or even a 3D printer to create your model. So CAD is pretty powerful and it encompasses a lot more things than just designing. But for this class, we're mostly focusing on the design aspect. Obviously, there's more than one CAD software out there. Fusion 360 is not the only one. We did talk about AutoCAD, that's mostly 2D. Other Autodesk softwares like Inventor also exists. It's very similar to Fusion. But then there's also other companies like Salt Systems, who does SolidWorks and a couple other programs like CATIA. And then, there's Creo, Onshape. There's a bunch of programs out there. Some of them are free, some of them are paid. It's kind of up to you. But they all generally do the same thing. You can make 3D models using a certain set of tools that are usually pretty similar. But yeah, we just favor Fusion for this course because it's a little bit easier to access. But all these CAD softwares are all pretty great. But yeah, this is the first assignment. Hopefully my Fusion's like almost done. No, it's not. Okay. Yeah. So does anyone have any more questions? Maybe questions about like submitting stuff? Oh wait, I can go over that now. So basically how this course is structured, all of the communication will hopefully be over Discord. If I'm going to be emailing you, it's typically a bad thing, and don't make me email you because I don't like sending emails. So please, like, if you have questions, please send them on here, or you can DM me if you have a more private question. But generally, for stuff in class that we're going to go over, it'll typically be found in resources. So like all the Autodesk registration stuff that we did today will be in resources. I believe I usually post all the lectures for this class in resources as well. So after this class finishes, I'm gonna like post it to YouTube and you can watch the lecture again if you missed something. So also if you're not here for whatever reason, you can reference it too. I don't know if you all read the attendance policy for this class, but basically how it's structured is that I want like no unexcused absences. So if you're going to be missing class for whatever reason, which I totally understand, right? People have like IR stuff to do. That's why some of the TAs are gone today. Or, you have an exam. I'm not going to expect you to ditch your exam to take this class, right? So if you're going to be gone, that's totally fine. There's an absence form that you should fill out just so I know that you're recognizing that you're not going to be here and you're not just like ghosting me and leaving this class. So if you didn't know, like again, this class used to be 80 students, now it's 40, just because of this like class capacity, like physically. But there's like over 100 people on the wait list right now. So like, if you're gonna not take this class like seriously, if you know what I mean, like if you're gonna just like not show up and not submit anything, I'd rather give that spot to someone like out of the 100 people waiting for this class. So if you're not going to be here, that's fine. But like my goal is that everyone stays engaged with this course. So over here, if you're going to be gone, just fill out the absence form. It's basically just saying, hey, I'm not going to be here, but I'm going to review the material and catch up later. Because the main reason people don't pass this class is because they stop showing up and then they stop submitting stuff. So you'll see pretty early on, like I'm going to be doing most of the stuff like that you need to do to pass this class. So a lot of the people finish most of the assignments in class. So if you show up and you follow along, you're going to get, pretty substantial amount of the way there. So yeah, that's why I recommend everyone comes. But, I understand exams and stuff. So please go do that. I also will say if we have over 90% like unexcused absences, then I will bring food on week 5. Yes. Yeah, if you haven't already, please fill out the attendance form. Just so I know that you're here. If you don't fill it out, I'm going to send you an email and be like, hey, I'm going to drop you from the course if you don't respond, so I can give it a seat to someone else, right? So I didn't count 40 people, or I didn't like, count, but hopefully there's 40 people. If not, we'll open more spots for week 2. Also, oh yeah, what's up?
I just wanted to ask where the attendance from was.
Oh yeah, it's in a course material. If you're interested in the slides that I'm like kind of showing today, that's available to you here. If you're interested in the rubric that, kind of what you're being graded on, you can click that as well. If this loads. Yeah, these are the assignments we're going to be doing today. All this stuff is available to you. So if you're ever curious on why I remove points, kind of see the point values assigned for everything. So, I'm not giving you like a cheat sheet, but I'm kind of giving you a guide. So yeah. When you submit your assignments, there's another form. It's another Google form. You'll basically fill out your information, like name, email, stuff like that. And then just for most of the assignments, I just want you to submit screenshots. I'll explain how much of your screen you need to screenshot, but if you want to be safe, just screenshot your whole screen. It's not that bad. Yeah. You kind of submit all of the assignments at the same time. So if you did like one assignment and you were going to submit it, please don't do that. Just do all of them and then submit them all at the same time. Because when I grade them, I grade like each submission and I'm not looking at the ones that are just blank. So if you want to save me time when I grade, just submit them all at once. That'd be pretty helpful. So when I grade them, the Gmail account associated with your Google form will get an email for your grade. And I'll usually let everyone know when I send all the grades up. It's a week by week thing. So each submission form, like all of the homework for like week 1 will be due right before week 2 starts, if that makes sense. So at 5:29 p.m. on Monday next week, that's when all this stuff that we're covering today will be due, if that makes sense. And for the final, it'll be due a week after the last session. So if you want to consider it 6 weeks, then you can, but you can typically finish the final pretty early. Yeah. Any other questions? Almost there. Okay. No. All right. I'm sorry. I completely forgot to install Fusion. Yeah, if Mondays, this is a kind of a side note, if Mondays don't work well for you, I might be opening a second session later this week to get more people off the wait list. So if you would prefer a different day, if you have a scheduling conflict, which I'm guessing that not many of you do have because you're all here, another day in the week might be available. I'm still figuring out how that might work logistically. So if updates happen, I will let you all know. But yeah. Okay, I timed this very poorly. This class is very quiet. Sometimes I get a bunch of rowdy people and it gets kind of hectic.
Yeah, I don't really quite I do. Yes. Are we doing work with assemblies?
We are. Yes. So, let me see. So here in week 3, we're doing assemblies with the Lego car and the homework. Yeah. So yes. If you have experience with assemblies and other programs, Fusion's a little bit different. but you know, the general concept is the same. Yeah. Because my or some of my experience earlier before I taught this class was not fusion. It was a little bit unintuitive for me at the beginning. But as I got used to it, it wasn't too bad. Um, it's just a little bit different, but it's nothing unmanageable. The tool actually changed from like the first time I started this class. They kind of revamped the assembly tool, and I think it got better. So yeah. Okay, cool. So I'm logged in and everything's working. So I'm guessing everyone's good now. If by show of hands, who does not have Fusion installed? Was I the last one? Okay. Do you think you can just follow along and stuff? All right, cool. So we're gonna start out with some basic sketching and extruding. We're just gonna make some simple building blocks. If you already know how to CAD, this should be pretty light. But again, if you don't know, that's totally okay. Great. Basically, this is kind of your Fusion workspace. Over here on the left is what they call the data panel. That's what you would kind of consider like your Google Drive or File Explorer. This is where you're going to store all your files. So you can see, you know, I have these folders. I think they're called projects. You know, where I kind of organize everything. Feel free to organize everything however you like. I do recommend you make a project because sometimes if you do like some weird stuff with this stuff up here, then it can get like lost and like become really weird to access. So I'm just gonna make a new project. If you're having trouble finding the data panel, you can show and hide it with these like array of 9 squares up here in the corner. So, you know, you can toggle it on and off. Up here is kind of your toolbar. You're going to be hanging out here a lot to select the different tools you might want to use. So it'll change depending on what you're doing, but you're going to get pretty familiar with this up here. Over here is kind of, you know, some other stuff with, you know, the origin and document properties. So depending if you want to change your units or whatever, this might be useful to you. I'm going to hide the data panel real quick. It'll also kind of give you a list of all the things that you've created along the way. So if you want to kind of go back and look at it, over here is nice. There's also the timeline on the bottom. We're going to go a little bit more into detail with that like in the next coming weeks. But for week 1, you don't need to worry about it too much. But for week 2 and on, when you submit your assignments, please have the timeline like visible, right? If I can view the timeline, I can kind of see how you went about designing something. So if you did something in an obscure way, like I'll kind of know. So please submit it. If not, then you're gonna like lose points, and I don't want to take off points for you just not screenshotting something properly. So yeah, please submit the timeline. If you want, you can get in the habit and just do it this week too. But yeah. Anyways, I'll just get right into it. I like to have the little grid. If you want the grid, you can just go down here and click the layout grid. For moving around, I don't have a mouse right now, but that's okay. No, it's totally fine. If you don't have a mouse and you want to orbit around, so orbiting is like when you rotate around a part, there's something up here called the view cube. Oh, okay, yeah, that's a good question. So for this class, I don't care about units. I don't care about units or dimensions. I think there's one assignment that cares about it. For everything else, you can kind of do whatever you want. So if you want to CAD in like kilometers, that's fine. Maybe don't do that for the final, but yeah, you can kind of use whatever units you want. But yeah, For navigating around like this big blank space is where you're going to be creating your parts. If you don't have a mouse, you can use this thing called the view cube in the corner, and you can kind of hold down and you can kind of spin around. You can also, zoom in and out by scrolling with your scroll wheel. And then to pan side to side, you can hold middle click, which is why I recommend a mouse. Because if you don't have a mouse, you can't middle click unless you have like a ThinkPad or something. And then to orbit, like without the view cube, it's shift and middle click. I think there's a way to change these mouse controls because I did a while ago. I kind of forgot how to do it. So yeah, panning is like when you go side to side like this, and then orbiting is, spinning around, and then zooming is just zooming in and out. Yeah, that's just kind of basic manipulation stuff. Yeah, is anyone confused about that? All right, sick. So now we'll just kind of get into the modeling. I'm going to start with this cube here. So typically when you model stuff, you typically want to start with a sketch, right? A lot of these designs that we're going to be creating require you to make a 2D drawing, and then you're going to manipulate that in some way to make it 3D, right? So if you think about this cube, what we're going to do is we're going to create a square, and then we're just going to like pull it, or they call it extruding, right? So we're going to pull it into the third dimension. So yeah, to do that, we need to draw something. So we're going to start with a sketch. And because we're working in a 3D space, we have to specify which plane we're creating the sketch on. When you're working with a blank document, it'll give you 3 planes that you can work off of from the origin, but you can also create sketches on faces that you create later, right? So I'll do that in a little bit just to kind of show you how it works. I'm just going to select this plane here, and we can start making stuff. So you can see the toolbar changed. These are all the sketch tools. Over here are kind of like the line and circle arc tools that you can use. There's sketch dimension, which we'll go over in a little bit. And then over here, there's your constraints, which we're going to be going more over in week 2. But yeah, I'm just going to start by creating a nice 2-point rectangle. If you want, you can make 4 lines, but I'm just going to do a rectangle. If you're interested, there's a bunch of other tools here if you want to make different kinds of rectangles. I personally like the center rectangle a lot, so I'm actually going to use that. But you can see, if you're looking for more tools, they're here. Yeah, so I'm going to start with a center rectangle. You can use a normal like 2-point rectangle. One rule of thumb that I highly recommend you use for CADing is when you create sketches, always base your parts on the origin, right? So I'm going to talk a lot about having your sketches fully defined. And what I mean by that is like you need to make sure you can't arbitrarily move one of your points on your sketch because that makes it more like imprecise, if that makes sense. So if everything is fully defined, you won't be able to move it because you specified where every point should be. So it's not ambiguous. And one of the best ways to do it is by starting on the origin, right? So I'm going to create a center rectangle based on the origin. If you're using a 2-point rectangle, I'd recommend you put one of the corners on the origin, if that makes sense. But yeah, you can see here, making this rectangle, just dragging it out. And then all these lines, or all the edges on this rectangle are blue, right? So that means it's not defined, right? And because it's not defined, you can see like I can manipulate this. Oh wow, I made a perfect square. I'll delete that. I didn't make a square on accident. I'll make one in a second. But you can see like how like I was able to manipulate, this shape to be, whatever shape I want, right? But because it's not defined, it's not specified at all how big this rectangle is. So to change that, I'm going to add some dimensions. So sketch dimension is the tool right here. And then I just kind of click on a line, click again, and specify some length, right? I'll just make this 60. You can see when I specified this, these two vertical lines turn black, and it's because, because this length is specified, these can't move anywhere in the horizontal direction, right? So that's good. We can do the same for this edge, set this to 60 as well. Obviously, you can set these two to be equal, which I'll kind of go over more next week, but I'm just going to do this for now. Yeah. Does this make sense to everyone? Yeah, so if you don't have dimensions specified, then you can just kind of drag things around. So that's not what we want. Oh, yes. Yeah, sometimes if your screen is a little bit narrower, then it goes away, but it's also here at the bottom. Or you can press D. What was your question? You go under document settings and units. Yeah. So if you, again, I don't care about that, but if you want to change it, that's totally fine. But yeah, in general for this course, we want all of our sketches to be fully defined. It's just a good habit to get into. So if you create that habit now, then you'll be making a lot of more solid sketches later on in your design career. Cool. Okay. So once I'm finished, there's this big fat check mark in the top right corner. I'm going to finish it. You can see here, it's a square, nothing 3D is happening. But to make it 3D, I'm going to add an extrusion. So you can see when I hover over it, it'll kind of tell you what it is. Like I said, it's kind of intuitive that way. So I'm going to click extrude, and then there will be a bunch of different options. In this case, I'm just going to specify the distance, which should be 60. You can see there's a cube appearing, but these can be, or these different parameters can be important depending on how you design stuff. So here, like the start is where the extrusion starts. Sometimes you'll make a sketch on a plane, but you want it to start somewhere else. So you can create like an offset or something like that. Or you can have it start at an object. So I'm just going to leave it as profile plane. For direction, there's 3 different options. Typically, I like to use symmetric for stuff like this just because it makes like all the planes on the origin like centered on the part. That's just kind of a personal preference. Again, there's a lot of different like preferences that people have in CAD. So if you design some things a different way, that's generally pretty okay. It just kind of depends on the design intent that you're going for. So I'll do symmetric. 2 sides is nice if you want like it to be uneven from when you create the sketch, but I want it to be nice and even. So I'll do symmetric, and because of it's symmetric, I'll have to make it half of the length, so it's 30. We're creating a new body because it's the only thing that's there. But yeah, once you confirm it, you have a lovely cube. Cool. I know I'm going like slow, but it's mostly for fundamentals. Yeah.
Somehow I only have the 4 side with you, and I don't have the top and bottom. But
You oh, okay. You're in service, so you want to make sure you're not. Okay, yeah. So another random thing. So he was accidentally in like the surface category. You can see all the icons are orange. We're not really going to touch surface modeling in this class except for an extra credit assignment. So if your models start looking weird, make sure you double check that all your icons are blue and stuff. Yeah, cool. Okay. So now I'm going to go a little bit faster now that you kind of understand the basics. I'm going to make a cylinder now. It'll be very similar to what we just did. I'm going to create a sketch. Instead of choosing one of the planes off the origin, I'm just going to show you that you can choose existing faces that you've created, right? So I can use this face as a reference to create my sketch. And because just kind of this assignment in general, I'm not going to be starting off the origin because I don't want all the parts to be on top of each other. Typically, when I create parts, I make them in their own like design, but just because, you know, this is a demo, I'm just going to be mashing a bunch of stuff together. You can see here, you know, the circle's floating. To fully define it, you know, I have to specify its diameter, but I can't just do that, right? Because it's not attached to the origin, it's like position in like the plane is not specified. So I need to add some more dimensions. So in this case, like the distance from there to here, so let's do like 100, and then like the distance from there to there in this direction, right? So that's why I typically recommend you draw stuff off the origin, so you don't need to add these, you know, extra dimensions. It makes your sketches a little bit cleaner. But yeah, I'm happy with this. It's a circle. I'm going to extrude it. This time, because there's more stuff going on, it's going to ask what I want to extrude. So I'm just going to click this face here and then specify some distance. If I want it to go the other way, I can make it negative 100 or maybe 200 or 150. Okay. So I like that. You have a nice cylinder there. And then for the last one, there's like this kind of arch shaped object or this little bridge piece. So I'm gonna create another sketch. Again, I'm just gonna pick a random plane here just to show you that it doesn't have to be on the origin. And now we can kind of break this block down, right? So you can see, like, if you think about it, it's like a rectangular prism with like a half circle cut out of it. There's many ways you could go about creating this, right? You could create a rectangular prism and then cut the circular shape away, or, you know, you can just make it all at the same time, right? And, you know, obviously, depending on what you're trying to design, you might want to pick one way or the other. In this case, I think it would be more efficient to just make it all at the same time, right? So to do that, I'm going to make like a rectangular face, and then I'm going to cut out the circle in the sketch. But you can do it using your extrude functions if you were interested in that.
Draw the front of the bridge and then extrude it.
Yeah. So you could draw like a rectangle, and then you can draw a circle on the prism and then cut it away. But I'm just going to do it all in one step. So I'm going to... Well, you need to create a sketch first. Yeah. Are you in a sketch?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So you'll do extrude after. So I'm going to draw this arbitrary rectangle here. And then I'm going to start defining it. Again, I'm not starting on the origin just for like demo purposes, but I highly recommend you do in the future. Really teaching you bad habits from day one. Okay, so you see here, it's fully defined. All of these lines are black, which is good. Another thing to note, I mean, we've only been making like closed like geometry, but you can see here, I guess it's hard to see on the projector, but if you look on your screen, you can see the inside of the rectangle is highlighted blue. That means it's like a closed shape. So if you ever make more like complex geometries and you try to extrude it, but it's not extruding, and you open the sketch and there's no like blue highlighted area, that's probably why. You're gonna want to look in your sketch to make sure you can find like the spot where it's not closed. But yeah, so I have this circle, I mean this rectangular prism here, and I'm gonna create that little arch spot. Here I'm gonna create a circle, and you can see as I run along this line, it'll kind of snap to different spots. When it snaps, when you see this triangle, it represents a midpoint. So that means I'm in the middle of this line, if that makes sense. So I want this to be centered, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to make a circle, and then I'm going to dimension it. So let's make this 100. You can see now, you can kind of see the outline of which we're creating here, but we have a bunch of extra stuff that we don't really want, right? So to cut it away, there's this cool scissor called the trim tool, and we can get rid of all these unwanted lines. So you can either like hold your mouse down and then run your mouse across the line or arc, or you can typically click on the line. So you can see it's highlighted red on where it's going to cut it, and if you click it, it just goes away. You can see there's this warning that popped up, and you can see the circle turned like from black to blue, and that's because when we created the circle, we were referencing the midpoint of that line that went across, but when we trimmed it away, the midpoint doesn't exist anymore, right? So if Fusion gets mad at you, this is not constrained anymore, so this can move around. So to fix that, we need to add some more constraints back. One thing I'm going to do, this is a more of a week 2 thing, but I think this is pretty relevant here. Because I want this to be centered, right? We want both of these lines to be equal to each other. And if you wanted to, you could do the math and do like 200 minus 100 divided by 2 and then like set this dimension, which is fine, right? But if you decide that you might want to change this dimension later, and this stays at 50 and maybe this turns to 300, it won't be centered anymore. So one way that you can kind of make sure the geometry stays the same if you change it later is by adding geometric constraints. We're going to be going like a lot deeper into that next week, but this is a good use case. So we want these two to be equal all the time. So there's this equal constraint right here. And then I'm just going to click on these two lines, and then it'll always be centered, right? If I change this to 300, you can see it's still centered, right? So that's what we're looking for. Okay, now Fusion's mad at me. Okay, where is it? But yeah, that's just kind of one small snippet. Again, this is all like preference and kind of based on how you're designing something. So yeah, I'm happy with this. So I'm gonna extrude it. Let's extrude it this way. You can also drag this arrow. I just find it to be kind of imprecise. So I usually like typing. Yeah. Okay. Raise your hand if you're not here yet. It's totally okay.
Mine is hiding.
So if you ever want to edit a sketch that you've already created, that's one of like the powerful things about CAD is that you can go back and change things. You can go in to your, I like to use the timeline. If you go into your timeline, you can see kind of like the story of like how I created these parts, right? You can see here there's a sketch and then an extrude and then like doing that 3 more times. So you can edit them by, finding it. In this case, I want to edit this. You right click it and you can edit the sketch, and then you can change dimensions, right? So, let's say I wanted this to be a little bit bigger. I'd change this to like 70 and like 70. Again, this is another point where I'd probably use an equal constraint, but I'll just leave it at that. You can see now like my cube is squished because it's not tall enough. Yeah, there. Now it's bigger, right? So if you ever want to edit stuff, that's one of the nice things about CAD.
Can you dimension things off of the axes? Because like when you're in a sketch and you have a rectangle and it's drawn somewhere, how do you move it around? There's nothing on that plane that.
Which rectangle? I guess I'll just make another sketch and you can talk me through it.
If you make any rectangle sketch on anything,
like an arbitrary rectangle over here.
What do you constrain that to
make it fully defined?
Basically to constrain its XY position like right now.
Yeah, so you can see obviously I haven't done the rectangle's lengths, so let's do 100 by 120. You can see it's still blue, right?
Yeah.
But you can see this dot here, which is the origin. You can constrain off of that because that's the only defined point in space when you create a model. So if you define this edge to here,
okay,
it'll do this in the x direction, so 200. But then you have to specify the y direction, so you would do this one and this one, and then you would get this dimension.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. You typically want to create it on the correct plane when you first start. I think you can edit it here by redefining the sketch plane. So if you go under the sketch, you can redefine where the sketch is created. But sometimes if you create it and it gets really messy, I tend to just delete it and make a new one. Yeah. Is anyone still stuck here? Okay, so the last thing to do for this assignment is adding appearances. So you can see these blocks are nice and colorful. So I would like for you to add appearances to a lot of the assignments. You can kind of see on the rubric where it's specified and where it's not. But when you apply them, please don't use gray. If you use gray, I'll just assume you didn't apply it, right? Because the models start as gray. So please, if you want to make my life easier when grading, please choose a very colorful color. Because if you don't, I'll just assume you didn't do it. But to add appearances, the shortcut is just pressing A on your keyboard. If it loads. Okay, there it is. And then this kind of pop-up will appear on the side. And this is where you can apply a bunch of different materials. Why is this so small? But you can see, Fusion has a bunch of it has a library of a bunch of different stuff. I typically just go with paint just to make it nice and colorful. But you can see here just a bunch of colors that you can pick, and I think you can make custom appearances too. Typically you have to download them if you haven't used them yet, so I don't know, I'm gonna do green, red, and blue. And it's pretty simple. You usually just drag and drop. So I want that to be blue, that to be green, and this to be red or something, right? And then boom, appearances. But yeah, that's assignment 1. So if you were following along, you just got 10 free points. So again, that's why I recommend you show up to class. Yeah. Any questions on this? Did you have your hand up? Okay. Please don't hesitate to ask questions. No, it doesn't have to be the exact same dimensions. Just as long as you have a cube, a cylinder, and this like bridge-looking piece, it's totally fine. You just press A to open this, and then you kind of pick which material you want. So I typically use paint, and then you have to download them over here, and then you just drag the color. Yeah, I think you can also like right-click a model and then like set the appearance over here. But I typically just like doing it on the side. Yeah. All right. Are we good here? Hmm? Rotate the object? I typically recommend you just create the object where it needs to be. So again, typically when I design stuff, I design things like one part at a time. So I wouldn't create like 3 bodies in like one file. I would just create one model, like make it really nice, and then make a new file, right? So I think there is like this move tool up here, but I recommend you don't use it because it'll kind of like make your feature tree or your timeline just kind of messy. So yeah, I just recommend, I think it's good practice to just place the part where it needs to be. But if you really wanted to, the move copy thing, I think does that. But yeah. Yeah, you just press A and then you find under these appearances, I used paint glossy and I found these, and then you just drag and drop. Did you have a question? Oh, okay, sweet. Okay. We good? Okay. So I know I went pretty slow with this, especially if you already have CAD experience. This is mostly just to get a very strong foundation of how you create things, because creating good sketches is like a very important part of CAD, right? If you have really messy sketches and they're really hard to read, it'll make them really annoying to change later, right? So this is just kind of some habits I want to instill on all of you. But yeah, so I'm just gonna save this. So Control S or Command S, whatever computer you're on, name it whatever you like, and put it in whatever project. I'm just gonna name it Assignment 1, and then I'm just gonna move on to the next one. The next one is like this Purdue hammer. Again, we're using very similar design tools. So I'm gonna start a new design up here on the top right, just like making a new tab, or like Control or Command N, same thing.
What does include text mean for assignment?
Oh yeah, I'll get to that. We're embossing text on the bottom of the piece. But yeah, so there's a couple ways we could go about designing this hammer, right? So for the main body, there's like, this cylinder looking piece on the bottom, there's a little cylinder piece poking out on top, and then like the hammer itself, right? So I've never asked this question before. Does anyone have like an idea of how they would design this?
Trimming the edges with a triangle. Because it's and making a circle in the cylinder and trying to extrude it.
Yeah, I mean that's a pretty good way about going it. Typically I start with the handle first on this, but again, this is like, that's totally fine if you wanted to do the hammer first. But again, there's multiple that just shows there's multiple ways of doing this, and they're both like correct, right? You could extrude one piece, make the hammer, and then extrude another piece here. what I'm going to do is I'm going to extrude this extra long and then just have the hammer phase through the part, right? So that just kind of reduces the number of like operations or like design features. But again, this is all dependent on what you're designing. But for this, I'm going to start with the cylinder. So making a sketch, picking a plane here, doing a circle from the origin, and then specifying a diameter. So that's fully defined. Again, I'm going a little bit faster now because I'm hoping that people are getting this, but if this is a little bit hard to follow, I am recording this, so you can reference it later if need be, or you can just yell at me. That's fine too. So I'm going to specify a length. Maybe let's make it longer. Say okay. So I have this handle here, and what I want to do is I want to create this rectangular prism like inside this cylinder, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a sketch on the top, and when I extrude it, I'm going to offset it, right? Again, I'm mainly just doing this to show you all the different functions. You know, there's no like wrong way to do this, unless you don't make a hammer, but that's, I guess, not doing it. So I'm going to use this top plane instead of the origin, because the origin's like down here now, but I'm starting on the top. For this, I think the center rectangle is a lot more appropriate because I want it to be centered on this handle here. Did I choose the wrong plane? Okay, no, I didn't. So I got this rectangle here. I'm going to dimension it. And you can see like this general hammer shape is taking place. It's obviously in the wrong spot, but we'll fix that in a bit. So I'm going to finish it. And then when I go to extrude it, you can see if I select that, both like the center and the outside, when I specify a distance, you can see like it's just going straight up from the end of the sketch, but I want it to go in the other direction. So I'm going to go -100. You can see it turns red, and it's because Fusion will like try to assume what you're doing, and in this case it thinks I'm just trying to cut this rectangular shape away from the cylinder, right? But I don't want that, so I'm going to change the operation from cut to join so that it makes it one solid piece. But you can see there's no like little nub on top, right? So to create that, instead of starting from the profile plane, I'm going to create an offset. So I'm going to do, I think, like -10 maybe. Yeah, maybe like -15. So you can see here, like this blue rectangle is where I created the sketch, but you can see how the extrude is starting away from it, right? And it's because I set that offset at 15, and it's negative just because it's going down. But yeah. Does that make sense? Feel free to raise your hand if I'm like not making sense. Okay, I'll walk around.
So where's the sketch that you created for this? Okay. Oh, okay.
So, I was gonna say, the section, the one that, the, that's the one. So, edit. I have so much torque on it. Oh, I see. Okay, so, and make it, oh, okay. And then, yeah, so that's because I feel like that's not the best thing. Does that make sense? Yeah. Also, we don't care about that. Yeah, actually, sometimes it's. No, I'm not gonna take points away from that, just add stuff. This is, okay. This is not true. You can finish it. And you don't want it to start. You want it to start. See that it's it's probably gonna be a negative. Let's see what like first time like just I don't know. Yeah. So, you see clean down now. So we can see because we did that, we got the bottom and the top operation.
Okay, so the last thing to do on this hammer is, oh great, my computer froze. Super sweet. Okay, you can see here in the model, like these corners are kind of rounded, right? So we're gonna add those rounded corners in Fusion. In this case, we're using rounded corners instead of like 45-degree angles. So this is what you would call a fillet. The other kind is called a chamfer, but I can go over that later. So to add the rounded corners, you can create a fillet. Typically, like the best design practice is to add fillets at the end, just because like when your parts get more complex, and then you add fillets, and then you design stuff on top of the fillets, then things can tend to get a little messy. So, at least what I like to do is I like to add these things last, and then it kind of just like makes your finished part look even more polished. But yeah. For fillets, you can select faces or edges. When you select a face, it selects all the edges associated with that face. So, if I select these two faces, it'll select all 4 edges. And then I'll click around the other edges of this rectangular prism. But then here we can specify some dimension. So you can see if I have like a smaller number, the corners are not as round, but if I like increase the number, they'll get like significantly larger, right? So, these dimensions don't really matter, but depending on what you like, you might like one with super big fillets or like super tiny fillets. I'll do like 15. I don't know. But yeah, there we go. Nice hammer with rounded edges. Looks good to me. I'm pretty sure someone asked about appearances. I'm pretty sure appearances aren't required for this assignment. Yeah, it's not. So if you want to color it, go for it. But I'm not grading that. Okay, everyone good here? Yeah. I mean, I'm not that picky. Are you talking about like this edge right here?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. People do that. It's okay. If you want to change it, you can though. Yeah, so if you like go in your timeline and you want to edit it, you can find it and then edit the feature. and then you can change it here. Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. It's 7:10, so I'm gonna try to speed run the last assignment and tell you about the homework. Yeah. The last one is a game piece. So instead of extruding it, we're gonna be doing something called a revolve. Where's this slide? So basically, how a revolve works is I don't know if any of you have taken calculus and done like the disk and washer stuff, but the revolve is basically the same thing, right? It's basically taking some profile that you create and copying it like infinite times around an axis to make something solid, right? So you see here, like we're kind of shooting to create this kind of game piece shape, but to do that, we're going to create this profile. So it's almost like a quarter of the game piece if you cut it in half twice. And then we're going to revolve it, and it'll be a nice round piece. So as always, I'm going to start with a sketch. I'm going to choose the front plane for this, and then I'm just going to start drawing. Typically, I like to just kind of throw like lines out there in the general area that I want it to be, and then I define them later. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to, create 2 vertical lines, create another one here. I'm going to create a circle, another line, and then I'm going to create an arc. So I'm going to use a 3-point arc, but you could also make a circle here and then trim it away. So I'm going to do an arc. There we go. So you can see, like, obviously this is a very like demented and ugly game piece. Like, I don't think you'd want to play with this. So let's make it look better. So I'm going to first start by trimming away some of the excess. So I'm going to trim like this part of the circle away, and then this. And you can kind of see we're starting to get there a little bit better. I'm going to add some geometric constraints. Again, we're going to be going over this next week, so you don't have to fully understand what I'm doing now, but it might be useful. I want this to be like a nice smooth transition from this like arc to this circle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the line tangent to the circle. So if I select the tangent tool up here, I'm going to click these two, and then that makes it, nice. And then I'm just going to start adding like dimensions. So here, I'll just add like this height. Let's make the piece like 100. Specify this radius. Make this taller. With the dimension tool or the sketch dimension tool, you can also specify angles. So I clicked on like this line, and you can see I can specify this angle. So let's say I want it to be like 20 degrees. I can do that too. I'll specify this height and maybe like this radius. You can see here, like most of the stuff is defined. There's something that is undefined here. And typically what I like to do when I can't figure out like what is undefined, I'll kind of move the blue things around to see what moves, and then I can kind of figure out what needs to be constrained. In this case, I think the center point of this arc should be in line with this. That way this should be like a nice 90-degree angle. So I'm going to use another constraint, a geometric constraint. So I'm going to use the horizontal vertical constraint. Again, we're going to be going over this next week, so don't worry too much. I'm going to click on the center point and then this or not. Oh wait, no, it's coincident. Yeah, there we go. But yeah, we have this nice game piece profile. I'm happy with it. Again, it's fully defined. So all the lines are black and it's closed. So you can see how, like, well, I guess you can't see on the projector, but it's highlighted blue on my screen, and it should be on yours. Another thing I did that I didn't really mention is I created a construction line. So I'm going to delete this line real quick. But you can see how like this line is dashed, right? When it's a dashed line, it's a construction line, and Fusion will ignore it when it goes to extrude and stuff like that. So it's really useful for creating like certain geometries. Like if you think about like this center point rectangle, you can see like these dashed lines go to the center of the rectangle, right? And that's how it's created. You know, these two lines are equal to each other, and because of that, you know, it creates a nice rectangle. So obviously when I went to extrude this, it extruded like a normal rectangle, but there's more stuff inside, right? So when you create more complex stuff, you might want this construction geometry in your model, just to kind of help you place things where you want them to be. That makes sense. In this case, like this construction line is running from like the center of this circle to the bottom of the piece. But then like to make it closed, I need to add a line from the top of this circle to the bottom. So I'm just creating another line that goes over it, and then it makes it fully closed. Oh, and I deleted the dimensional constraint here, so I should fix that. If you want to toggle between construction lines, I believe when you're creating lines here, there's this construction option here on the right side. So you can create them there, or you can right click like a certain geometry and then make it normal or construction. So yeah. Does that make sense? All right, cool. So the last part is just to revolve this. So I'm going to finish it, and then instead of extruding it, I'm going to revolve it, right? When you revolve it, you have to specify the axis, right? Make sure you select correctly, because if you don't select correctly, then, you know, let's say I selected this one, you know, this isn't really like what we're after. It looks like a button or something. But if you select this one, you know, it looks like a game piece, right? So again, it's like the disk and washer calculus stuff. I think that's the only thing about calculus that made me happy. But yeah, anyways, that was kind of depressing, sorry. But yeah, we have this game piece. One of the last things to do is to apply text. So I know someone said or asked about the text on the bottom. We're gonna emboss text on the bottom of the game piece. So to do that, I'm going to create a sketch. I'm going to select the bottom of the game piece, and then I'm going to start making text. So under the create tab, you can see there's this text option. You can both have it either like, you know, floating in space, or you can kind of constrain it with either like a spline or a circle or a line. I'm just going to have it floating, but it is kind of cool if you have something and you want like the text to like go around in a circle, you can do that. So here, I'm just going to create like a text box and then write something. A lot of people write their name. You can kind of write whatever you want. maybe don't put like a bad word on it, but yeah. You know, you can specify fonts and stuff. I'm not really gonna mess with it. Maybe I'll make it a bit bigger. Yeah. I think that looks good to me. I'm gonna finish the sketch and then I'm gonna extrude it. So I had to deselect the circle and select the sketch, and then I'm gonna specify some distance. You can see Fusion like was assuming I was cutting. In this case, it's right. So I'm just gonna press OK, and there we go. We have embossed text on our model. So that's nice. The last thing is to apply a color. So I'm gonna apply appearances just like I did on assignment 1. Why is this so tiny? Oh, yeah, here we go. When you take a screenshot of this, please have the text visible. If the text is not visible and I can't see your timeline, then I'll just assume you didn't add text. So yeah, like a screenshot from this angle is perfectly fine. Oh, so when you create the sketch, it's under create and sketch. So you have to make, oh gosh, I'm lagging. Yeah, so like you make a sketch on the bottom base, and then you go to create and then text. Yeah. Okay. Does anyone have any questions? Did you create like the text and the sketch and everything? Okay. So to do that, you're gonna want to add an extrude, and then for the profile, I think my sketch is hidden. For the profile, you want to make sure you select the text. Yeah. I think for me, it auto-selected this face, and it was like highlighted blue. So you can just delete the assumption right here, and then manually select the profile. And then you can do like a negative, whatever. And yeah. Damn, my computer is really lagging. That's great. Okay. Any other questions? Yeah. So I first made a sketch. So you create a sketch just like any other sketch. I placed it on this bottom face. And then I went under create and text, and then it allows you to make a text box. So make one, you write whatever. You finish it, and then you extrude it. So you go extrude. It auto selects the bottom face in this scenario. I don't know why. You can cancel it and then manually select this. Specify a distance that goes into your model. In this case, it's like -3 for me, and then you just press OK. Now I have some half cut off text. Yeah, maybe don't write like a swear word on it, but you can write whatever you want. Pretty cool. All right, sweet. I'm sorry if you're an inexperienced CADer and you like fell asleep today. Hopefully the other classes are a little bit more interesting if you do have CAD experience. If you don't know how to CAD, I hope you had fun.
So do I just upload these screenshots?
Yeah, that looks great. For the homework, the objective for you is to create a chair. You know, you should be able to create a chair with all the design features that you've learned today. You know, most of this chair looks like it was made of like extrusions and stuff like that, right? So, you know, you can make it however way you want. You could like extrude the legs first, or like make the, you know, cushion first, kind of whatever you want. You know, I think one of the requirements is that you use fillets, so I kind of forget what I have on the rubric. Yeah, so like make sure it has like 4 legs, some kind of like seat and backrest, and then like some fillets, right? It doesn't have to look exactly like this chair. You can kind of go crazy as long as it has those design constraints, unless you want to lose points, but that's up to you. But yeah. You would just flip for the distance, you flip the number. So if it's like 3, then you would make it -3. Yeah. And then you would make sure the operation type is set to cut instead of join. Yeah. If you are all done, that's basically all I have for today. Next week, we're going to be doing, you know, more advanced sketching techniques and learning some more design tools. Yeah, I hope you had fun today. See you next week. Also, if you're interested, I have 3D printed cubes, and I just don't know what to do with them. So if you want one, feel free to take it. Yeah, I've just been calibrating my printer, so feel free to take it. I have a boron trident, so I built the 3D printer. Yeah. It's pretty cool. I don't know if you know about like the bamboo printers, but I built my boron to be like a bamboo killer. So I print like 30% faster on a good day.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Do you have any experience like resin printing at all?
I don't really have a lot of resin experience. I mostly do FDM, but you know, resin's pretty cool. I just think it's kind of messy, so I don't really like.
It's kind of gross, but I love resin printing.
Yeah, I mean the resolution is insane. I'll give that. I think the materials are getting better too, because they used to be really brittle. But I've heard that they're
so many different types.
yeah, I've heard that they're like a lot better, so that'd be interesting. Okay, yeah. If for turning in your assignments, you just submit on the Google form under course material. You just take screenshots of everything you did and submit them all at the same time.
So you don't need the actual file.
Yeah, I should be able to understand what you did just from the screenshots. Yeah, please don't send me the Fusion file because then my computer has to launch Fusion and it takes like a while. So if you just send me screenshots, it'll make my life grading, or it'll make grading easier. That's much appreciated. Also, I don't know who this person is in the voice chat. No one to listen to. But yeah, I'm gonna hang out here for a little bit. Yeah. You want to cube?
Sure, I'll take a question.
So you're shooting for something that looks like this. So Yeah. There's an assignment submission. It's under here, course material, and then
I'm guessing you just need to see the screenshot, that's where you want the full screenshot.
I mean, I just want to see the timeline.
Okay,
Like,
the fact that there is one.
yeah, or like, because if I look at the timeline, I can typically understand what you did and how you got there.
Yeah,
Right? Because some people like their timelines are like wacky. And I'm like, what did you do? Right? So, you know, that'll help me like kind of figure out why the model is a certain way.
Alright, well, thank you.
Is the text visible?
Yeah, that's fine. Just make sure to cut the text into the. Yeah, but that's fine. When you cut it in, it'll probably be more visible too.
Okay.
Yeah.
How long do you have? How long do you have? So we can finish the third class.
Oh, yeah. Oh, thank you. The homework assignments are due like right before the next class, so you have like a whole week to do.
No, like including these.
Yeah, like that and like the chair. That's all you have to do for until next week. Yeah.
Really has chicken farm. And also chicken thighs with princess roll. It's so hard to concentrate.
That's why.
He was that world. That was the last time I ever saw him.
I found something
Pearson?
Yeah.
What?
There's like a study. I think I found it. There's a study that says what the Arnold.
Do you think that's where the quizzes are from?
Yeah, I think so.
And I'm like, holy crap. Alright.
It's not the exact thing.
Really?